necessarily someone they know and love and they trust. They all of a sudden have to trust a police officer and a social worker. And even as nice as Melanie is, she's, you know, an assistant district attorney, and that can be intimidating. And so what we've tried to do is come together in one place under one roof and provide all the services that this child and family needs in one location, so we can meet their needs and really free this child from the traumatic experience that they've had. And we're doing it in a way where we are not duplicating or re-interviewing multiple times. Even if Melanie is not involved in the case at the time the child comes to our center for an evaluation, their interview, when they have their opportunity to share their story with a trained professional in our staff, is taped. And so Melanie can have access to see that interview down the road if she gets involved in the investigation. We also have a pediatrician that comes to our center to provide the medical exam piece of the evaluation. Part of her role is evidence collection, if that's something that we feel that we can gather, depending upon the time of the incident and the time of the disclosure. But the other goal is that we want to make sure these children are healthy from head to toe. And we want to address any medical issues they might be having that needs attention. We want to address any mental health issues. Do they need counseling? You know, are they having attention issues in school? Has their school performance changed recently? Are they having some speech issues? So looking at the whole child and not labeling the child for the specific reason they've come to our center. And so it's a very much a team approach, and we really depend upon one another to provide the expertise that we can speak to. You know, I can't walk in Melanie's shoes. I didn't go to law school, and she can't walk in my shoes either, but we can help each other understand our roles and our protocols and the rules and regulations we kind of have to follow as professionals and work together in the best interests of the child.
And ultimately, Melanie, this helps the victim in the healing process and through justice as well.
Absolutely. By getting one coordinated interview that's videotaped, it's not exposing the child to being re-victimized each time she or he has to tell a story. But in times past, when this child would go from piece to piece, the child would get more comfortable telling it, and so those were things that were being attacked in court because the child would say X to one professional and Y, and so we want one coordinated interview, which if then shared with the defense attorney or shared in the course of moving forward with the prosecution, may avoid it ever having to go to trial. So we try and not make the child tell their story, and unfortunately there are some cases that we're unable to resolve and the children have to come into court and tell their story, which is very traumatic. It's difficult for the children, it's difficult for the jurors, I imagine, it's difficult for everyone in the courtroom. So the best that we can make the process along to that point and to that stage more comfortable and more child-friendly, the better we'll end up in court, is sort of our theory of that.
Absolutely. Kristen, how can people find out more information about SAFEchild and the SAFEchild Advocacy Center?
SAFEchild, our main location, is in West Morgan Street near NC State University, and the number there is 743-6140, and that's the number to call if a parent wants to get registered for a class or get involved in some of our other programs. And the Advocacy Center, that number is 231-5515. That's a separate location behind Wake Med off of New Bern Avenue.
Okay, and your website is
safechildnc.org.
Okay.
Thank you.
Still to come on Tar Heel Talk, how you can help protect children from abuse and neglect. Tar Heel Talk will continue after these messages. Welcome back to Tar Heel Talk. I'm Sonya Williams. Each year, more than 100,000 children are reported as being abused or neglected in North Carolina. SAFEchild is an organization working to keep children safe from abuse and neglect and to provide support to victims of child abuse. With us again is Kristen Duranje, Director of the SAFEchild Advocacy Center, and Melanie Shakita, Assistant District Attorney for Wake County. Now, before the break, we were talking a little bit about some of those support systems that are in place for victims of child abuse and their families. I think it's important for our viewers to understand some of the signs and symptoms, because you mentioned, Melanie, earlier that sometimes parents just don't believe it or they don't want to believe it, but there are some signs that something may not be right, and we should learn to recognize those and act accordingly.
I can tell you just from some experience, a lot of our reports come in from schools where teachers or guidance counselors will notice changes in children's behavior, or the children will feel comfortable, especially if it's abuse that's happening inside of the home, will come forward to the school officials, and so there may be changes in behavior, changes in grades, changes in just the way they act in school. There are medical conditions, obviously, that are highly suspicious of abuse, and so we'll get reports in from the hospitals, local hospitals, and so, you know, I don't want to alarm people and say any change in your child's behavior is something you should be worried about, but obviously there are signs, and there are children who are trying to tell sometimes and feel like they're in positions where they can't. So just noticing, I would say, changes in behavior, and I don't know, Kristen, if you have other ideas or things that you all have seen, but to be alarmed or to be alert to the children and the way their behavior changes.
I think Melanie said it, you know, perfectly. In the child abuse neglect field, we look at physical indicators and we look at behavioral indicators, and so and it's sometimes the change, but not just the change, but how long this change may go on. And so is it, you know, a one-time incident of having a bedwetting problem, or you know, is it, you know, all of a sudden it was one bad grade, but not bad grades that continue to slip over a long period of time. And so looking at changes of behavior and looking at physical indicators that, you know, tell a story basically. And we try to empower parents at SAFEchild to be their own child's detective, and to know that, you know, every parent is a child's first teacher, and so we're modeling things for them, we're teaching things there, but we're also kind of a detective to sometimes have to figure things out. And when you as a parent can't figure things out on your own, it's a good time to seek professional help, to say, you know, this is what I'm seeing in my child, and I don't know what it means, but, you know, I'd like some help in determining if it's something I need to be concerned about.
If you suspect that a child is being abused, what should you do? Whether it's your child or a neighbor or a family member? Well,
legally, if you believe a child is being abused, by law and by statute, you're supposed to report it to your local Department of Human Services, or CPS. And so, you know, if you have some concerns about a child, you can report that anonymously. They will take anonymous reports. But we as citizens have a duty and responsibility to notify our local Child Protective Service agencies about concerns of abuse. And there are safeguards built into the statute where you can't be punished if you were mistaken about abuse. And so it's really a system that is designed to encourage people, if they have concerns, to come forward. And even if they don't feel comfortable giving their name or background information, we will take anonymous reports. And then by law, the Child Protective Services agencies will go out and investigate those.
Okay. Now, Kristen, it really does take a community effort to keep children safe. How can people get involved with SAFEchild?
Well, we depend upon well over 250 volunteers a year to help facilitate and run our programs that we offer. Majority of our programs are free of charge to the community, and we depend upon volunteers to help us run those programs, but we also depend upon community volunteers to help us financially sustain those programs. By adding the Advocacy Center to our services at SAFEchild, our budget has been pushed well beyond $1 million a year. And even though we collaborate with all these different professionals, financially it's the responsibility of SAFEchild to make sure that this service stays in place and is vital. in our community, and
Right.
so we need volunteers, and we have all kinds of different options, and we need the financial sustainability from donors.
Okay, and people can contact you by calling 919-743-6140, or they can contact the Advocacy Center at 231-5515, and you can always log onto your website, safechildnc.org. Kristen Durante, Melody Shakita, thank you both so much for all you're doing to keep our children safe and to help our families, and thank you for being our guest today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's Tar Heel Talk. To comment on this or other episodes of the show, send us an email at tarheeltalk@fox50.com. I'm Sonya Williams. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.